This lesson video will guide you in creating in-text citations for your research-based argument essay in English 8. Let's talk about sources. Before we talk about citing sources, I want to make sure you understand how sources are connected to your essay. For this writing unit, you have several sources. The sources are the research articles you're using for your topic that you've chosen. From these articles, these sources, you find textual evidence inside that source that supports the position you're taking on the essay prompt, or in this case, some of it will support the opposing viewpoint because you do have to present the opposing viewpoint. When you put textual evidence in your writing, you need to cite it. You need to tell where you found the information. Whenever you're writing an essay, there's one very important step that must be followed: citing sources. Citing sources means telling the reader the sources you used for your writing. You give credit to the owner of that information that you use in your essay, otherwise it's plagiarism. To plagiarize means that you're presenting something as your idea instead of information from an existing source. There are three types of sources or in-text citations that you'll be using. You cite sources within your text, the in-text citation within your essay, and in the works cited page at the end of the essay. On the works cited page, you provide more complete information about your source, and you will be walked through that step within your course. In-text citations are required for textual evidence in your essay, whether it's a direct quotation, paraphrased wording, or a summary. The next few slides teach you the guidelines for the three types of in-text citations you may use for this essay. When you're putting textual evidence in your essay, you don't just drop it into the text. You introduce the information with a phrase, a sentence, a couple of words. Then you put in the evidence with the in-text citation, and then you have a commentary or analysis of it. So when you think of evidence for your essay, it's three parts: introductory, evidence, commentary. In argument essays, you should reserve using quotations for very important statements from authors. You use an author's quote when what the authors have to say is said so well that it makes a real significant impact on your argument. Long quotations of 4 lines or more are set up differently than shorter quotations. Generally in this essay there should be no need to have long quotations. However, if you absolutely want to include a quotation of 4 lines or more, and what that means is 4 lines on your paper, the instructions are set up like you're going to see. Now this was taken from the OWL at Purdue, and the website link is in your course and can give you much more finite and explicit instructions. Long quotation. You start the quotation on a new line, indented 1 inch from the left margin. You maintain your double spacing. If you're citing multiple paragraphs, only indent the first line of the quotation by an additional 1/4 inch. If you're quoting verse, maintain the original line breaks. Keep it double spaced. And verse would be something from a poem or even perhaps lines from a play. Your citation comes after the closing punctuation mark. Here's your example for a long quotation. Here's the introduction of the quotation, which is the same margin as your essay, and then you indent, and you keep indenting all along. If you're going to use quotations as your in-text citation, if you use exact same words from an author or from one of the characters as they appear in the story, you must put quotation marks around the words. You place quotation marks around the quote, but before you put the end punctuation, you put the in-text citation, the ITC, in. The end mark goes after the ending parentheses. Here's a model. There's the quote with the quotation marks. Here's the in-text citation, which is the author and the page or paragraph number. There's in-text citation, end mark comes after the parentheses. If the author's name is provided in the introductory comments that lead to the evidence, you do not have to repeat the name in the in-text citation. Here's an example. According to Sergeant Smith, there's the introduction, there's the quote, and then all you have to put in is the in-text citation paragraph number, and there's the end mark. If the author's quoting another expert in the article, a lot of researchers do this. They are researching themselves, so they'll quote someone else in that article. The ITC, the in-text citation, includes QTD in the citation, and the QTD in stands for quoted in. Here's a model. There's the quote, but this was quoted in the author's last name and the paragraph number, the in-text citation, and the end mark. If there's no author, the ITC contains the first main word of the title in quotation marks along with the paragraph number. Model. There's the quote with quotation marks, main word of the article, and the paragraph number. That's the in-text citation, and there's the end mark. Here are some models so that you can see what it looks like. This is a direct quote. Texting while driving has become a greater hazard than drinking and driving among teenagers who openly acknowledge sending and reading text messages while behind the wheel of a moving vehicle. And it's in quotation marks. There's you go, a direct quotation. There's the in-text citation, and you see the end mark. When behind the wheel, concentration and focus needs to be about driving, not about texting. Now, the author was quoted somebody else in his article. So, you'll see the QTD in. That's the in-text citation. Addiction to the smartphone has many unintended consequences. It's a direct quote from an article, and there's the first word of that article in paragraph 4. No author identified. There's the in-text citation. Paraphrasing is another tool you'll want to use when you're doing your research. You paraphrase information if you put the information you're reading from the source that you want to use as evidence and you put it into your own words. That means you should not use all of the same words, but should express the same idea in your own words. And yes, there are technical words. Sometimes there's no different way to say something than laptop computer. So perhaps there are words that are best that they stay the same. Even though you're using your own words, you're still borrowing the idea, and therefore you must cite the information with an in-text citation. Here's a model. You paraphrase the information. There are no quotation marks. There's the in-text citation, author's last name, paragraph or page number, and there's the end mark. Here's a model for paraphrasing. This is a paraphrase. When insurance companies have to pay out for accidents, they charge more money to owners of their insurance. And you can see the article it came from and the paragraph number. What was the original excerpt? Here's the exact quote from the article. Every time someone slams their car into a tree while tweeting their friends about the bad day they had at work, an insurance company has to pay. If an insurance company has to pay, they pass that loss on to all their members, thereby raising rates ever so slightly. So, if you look at that long quote and look up above, the writer paraphrased it, said the same thing, but reduce the number of words in this case and put it a little bit differently. Summarizing. You summarize information from a source when you take the ideas from the source and reduce them to fewer words by focusing just on the important points. A paraphrase presents the original information from the source, and it could be about the same number of words or maybe even longer, but a summary is very much shorter than the original text. For example, you might summarize in your own words in a paragraph, a whole article that's a page or longer. As a writer, you must make it clear to your reader when you're presenting a summary, and then you must cite that information. Here's a model. You have a summary, an in-text citation, and end mark. Here's a sample. Here's the quote. Students often overuse quotations when taking notes, and as a result, they overuse quotations in the final paper. Probably only about 10% of your final manuscript should appear as directly quoted material. Therefore, you should strive to limit the amount of exact transcribing of source materials while taking notes. Let's look what a summary would look like. Here's a summary. Students should just take a few notes in direct quotations from sources to help minimize the amount of quoted material in a research paper. There's the in-text citation and the end mark. Your assignment. Throughout the steps in writing this essay, you're going to be practicing this skill. You will find textual evidence, you'll be putting some of that on charts, you'll be organizing it, and you will be providing the in-text citation to go along with that. There are links in the course for resources with samples to show you this in a much more specific way. This video is intended to give you the overview of why we use citing sources and how you do it. You may view this video as many times as you need to get clarification. You also can contact your teacher who would be more than willing to help you. Complete instructions are in the PB Online course for this step.